Little Bird Two Feathers found the plain, honest man face down at her spring at 4 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in July, and did not, at first, know whether he was living. She had gone to the spring to fill her clay water jar, because the drought had run 7 weeks, and the spring was, plainly, the only plain, honest water within 4 miles of her small cottage on the north edge of the Southern Cheyenne allotment at Fort Reno. She had come around the corner of the plain, honest, small cottonwood grove and had found him. He was maybe 45. He was in a plain wool coat, cut in the plain, honest, small pattern of a plain, honest, small United States Cavalry veteran's coat, with a plain, honest, small brass Third Cavalry Corps pin at the lapel. He was sunburned to the color of a ripe peach. His canteen was empty. His plain, honest, small horse was, plainly, not with him. Little Bird Two Feathers, 34, in a plain, honest woven cotton dress and a plain wool blanket coat, set the clay jar down. She knelt beside him. She turned him. He was breathing. His pulse ran shallow but plainly. She said, in careful English, "Sir, can you hear me?" He said, in a voice like a paper folded 5 times, "Ma'am." She said, "Sir, my name is Little Bird Two Feathers. I live half a mile east of this spring. I am going to bring my wagon. Do not walk. Do not stand. Sit against the cottonwood." She fetched her plain, honest, small wagon and the plain, honest, small mule. She got him into the wagon bed. She drove him back to her cottage. She got him into the plain, honest, small parlor by the plain, honest, small stove. She stripped his plain, honest, small wool coat off. She washed his face and his hands and his neck with clean water and clean vinegar. She got a plain, honest, small spoon of water and a plain, honest, small pinch of salt down him. She got another. She got a third. She wrapped him in a plain, honest, small buffalo robe her Aunt Yellowfeather had given her at her wedding. She sat with him through the night. He was well enough to say his own name at dawn. He said, "Ma'am, Cyrus Yates, late of the Third Cavalry. Currently of a plain, honest, small homestead 9 miles south of the reservation boundary. I have been searching for a lost calf 3 days. I ran out of water yesterday. I fell off my horse this afternoon, and my horse ran home. I would not have lived the night on the plain, honest, small plain. I am obliged." Little Bird Two Feathers said, "Sir, Cyrus, please do not speak. Please drink a plain, honest, small cup of broth I have warmed for you. Please sleep." He drank the broth. He slept. He was well enough to sit at her plank table on the 5th day. She sat opposite him. She had, in the intervening days, sent a plain, honest, small paragraph by way of her nephew Small Antelope, age 10, to Cyrus Yates's plain, honest, small homestead, 9 miles south, informing his crew plainly that Cyrus was well and would return in a fortnight. His foreman, an old man called Boss Weller, had written back plainly by Small Antelope's return that the plain, honest, small homestead was well, the lost calf had been found, Cyrus's horse had been fed, and Cyrus was to take as long as he needed. Cyrus said, at the plank table on the 5th day, "Little Bird." She said, "Cyrus." He said, "May I ask a plain thing?" She said, "Please." He said, "You have been widowed." She said, "I have. My husband was called Runs Ahead. He was a plain, honest man. He died of a plain, honest, small horse throw at the plain, honest, small corral 3 years ago. We had no children." Cyrus said, "I have been widowed also. My wife June was called June. She died of a plain, honest, small lung sickness in 78. My daughter Ada, from June, is grown and married at Denver." Little Bird Two Feathers said, "Cyrus, then we have both been alone." Cyrus said, "We have." He stayed a fortnight at her cottage. She washed his plain, honest, small wool coat and mended a plain, honest, small tear at the sleeve, with the plain, honest, small fine silk thread her mother had left her. She fed him plain, honest, small meals of thin broth and plain, honest, small cornbread and a plain, honest, small handful of dried apples. He grew steadier. He walked the plain, honest, small yard on the 8th day. He rode the plain, honest, small mule to fetch his own hat back from the cottonwood grove on the 12th day. They spoke at the plank table each evening. She told him about her Aunt Yellowfeather, who lived a mile north at the plain, honest, small allotment center, and taught the plain, honest, small young girls to weave. She told him about Small Antelope, who was 10 and was, plainly, her sister's son, and would grow up to be a plain, honest man. She told him about her husband Runs Ahead. She told him, plainly, about the plain, honest, small Drought. He told her about the Third Cavalry, about the plain, honest, small 4 years at Fort Union in the 60s, about the plain, honest, small, honest years at his homestead since 72, about his daughter Ada at Denver. He said, at supper on the 10th evening, "Little bird." She said, "Cyrus." He said, "I would like to say a plain thing at some point during the fortnight." She said, "Please, now." He said, "I have been in love with you since the plain, honest, small buffalo robe on the second night. I did not know I was permitted to say it, because I had been at your plank table on the strength of a plain, honest, small heat stroke, and I did not want to press against the plain, honest, small heat stroke. I am pressing now. Please answer at your leisure." Little Bird Two Feathers said, "Cyrus Yates." She said, "I have been in love with you since the 6th day, when you helped me carry a plain, honest, small tin bucket of water in from the spring, plainly without being asked, and set the bucket down on the plain, honest, small kitchen bench, and said, 'Ma'am,' in the plain, honest, small voice of a plain, honest man, who had been raised by a plain, honest, small mother, of a plain, honest, small kind of Missouri. I have been holding it since. I would like to marry you plainly, if my Aunt Yellowfeather blesses it. She is the head of my mother's household. I will speak with her tomorrow." Cyrus Yates said, "Little Bird." Little Bird said, "Yes." Aunt Yellowfeather, 68, in a plain, honest woven cotton dress and a plain, honest fringed shawl, met Cyrus Yates at the plank table of her plain, honest, small cottage, a mile north, on the 11th day. She examined him plainly. She asked him plainly about his homestead, his crew, his daughter Ada at Denver, his plain, honest, small ways at the plank table, his plain, honest, small opinions of a plain, honest, small Cheyenne wife of the Southern band who would, plainly, keep her plain, honest, small home at both the allotment and the homestead 9 miles south. Cyrus Yates answered her plainly. Aunt Yellowfeather said, at the end of the questions, Cyrus Yates, "My niece has chosen well. Please marry her plainly, at your circuit preacher's plain, honest, small church, and at my plain, honest, small allotment ceremony both. That is my plain, honest, small blessing." Cyrus said, "Aunt Yellowfeather, thank you." Aunt Yellowfeather said, "You are welcome, son." The circuit preacher of Fort Reno married Cyrus Yates and Little Bird Two Feathers at the plain, honest, small Presbyterian Church of Fort Reno on the last Sunday of August. Aunt Yellowfeather stood witness for Little Bird. Boss Weller, Cyrus's foreman, stood witness for Cyrus. Small Antelope, aged 10, held the ring on a folded piece of blue muslin without dropping it. Aunt Yellowfeather blessed the marriage a second time in the plain, honest, small ceremony of her people at the plain, honest, small allotment center on the second Sunday of September, in the plain, honest, small presence of the plain, honest, small band's elders. Cyrus Yates, at Aunt Yellowfeather's plain, honest, small direction, sat plainly at the plain, honest, small ceremony, and did what he was told and said what he was told, and Aunt Yellowfeather told him afterward, plainly, at the plank table, "Son, well done." Cyrus said, "Ma'am." Aunt Yellowfeather said, "Do not say ma'am, say aunt." Cyrus said, "Aunt Yellowfeather." Aunt Yellowfeather said, "Good." They divided the year between the two properties. Little Bird kept her plain, honest, small cottage at the plain, honest, small allotment edge, and spent June and July there, so that she was, plainly, at hand for Aunt Yellowfeather's plain, honest, small summer weaving classes. Cyrus kept his plain, honest, small homestead 9 miles south, and, in August, drove Little Bird home. They wintered together at the plain, honest, small homestead. Small Antelope, aged 10, rode plainly between the two households at his own honest pace, and stayed at the plain, honest, small homestead most of the winter to help Cyrus with the plain, honest, small crew. Boss Weller, 72, taught small antelope plainly to keep a plain, honest, small tally book. 2 years on a warm September evening at the plain, honest, small homestead, Little Bird Yates sat on the porch step with Cyrus beside her, and their small daughter Wildflower, 10 months old, asleep against her chest. Aunt Yellowfeather, 70 now, sat in the plain, honest, small porch rocker with her mending. The drought had, plainly, broken in October of the first year. Little Bird's spring was full again. Cyrus's crew had, in the intervening months, dug a plain, honest, small second well at the homestead, 9 miles south, so that no plain, honest, small drought would, in the future, catch the Yates household short. Small Antelope, at 12, was foreman in training at Boss Weller's plain, honest, small direction. Cyrus said, "Little Bird." Little Bird said, "Cyrus." He said, "My daughter Ada wrote today." Little Bird said, "What?" Cyrus said, "She is expecting a plain, honest, small child in November. She has asked plainly whether we would come to Denver for the plain, honest, small christening." Little Bird said, "Yes." Cyrus said, "I have not yet answered." Little Bird said, "I have. Please write her back tonight." "Yes." Cyrus said, "I will." Aunt Yellowfeather, from the rocker, said, "Nephew, niece, please permit an old woman to come with you to Denver." Cyrus said, "Aunt Yellowfeather, please come." Aunt Yellowfeather said, "Good." The pasture went to gold. Wildflower dreamed. Small Antelope, at the bunkhouse porch, was reading a plain, honest, small tally book by lamp, because Boss Weller had told him plainly to. And Little Bird Two Feathers Yates, who had come around the corner of the plain, honest, small cottonwood grove at 4 in the afternoon, on a Tuesday in July, with a plain, honest, small clay water jar in her hand, and had found a plain, honest man face down at her plain, honest, small spring, put her cheek against her husband's shoulder, and understood that the good, slow country had, in its good, slow way, arranged a plain, honest, small 7-week drought, and a plain, honest, small lost calf 9 miles south, and a plain, honest, small runaway horse at 4 in the afternoon, of a plain, honest Tuesday, and had, on the strength of one plain, honest, small canteen, carried empty at a plain, honest, small spring, given her back not just the plain, honest, small buffalo robe her aunt had given her at her plain, honest, small first wedding, but the whole rest of a plain, honest, small household, divided between the plain, honest, small allotment cottage and the plain, honest, small homestead 9 miles south, joined plainly by the plain, honest, small ride of a plain, honest, small 12-year-old nephew, who kept, plainly, a plain, honest, small tally book by lamp. And so it had.